Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Reviews Without Remorse. I am Pennywise the Clown, otherwise known as Joe, with my partner Dave. What's going on, buddy?
You couldn't even name me one of the kids' characters?
You could be you could be Georgie then. That's the only one I really remember.
Great.
That's Georgie.
You'll float here! You'll float here!
On today's episode, we will discuss the opening of It, released to big numbers this weekend. I saw it. I'll give you my thoughts on it. And then Dave and I will conclude. This awesome series, the Rocky franchise, comes to a close, at least for now, and we will discuss Creed.
Bill, if you will come with me, you'll float too.
It opened up to big numbers this weekend. I'm not surprised because when I saw it, every teenager in the surrounding towns showed up to see it.
The highest grossing horror movie opening for a horror movie of all time. $123 million in U.S. alone.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like I said, I mean, I felt like when I went, honest to God, it was the only downfall of seeing a horror movie in the theater opening weekend is going to be the crowd. You know, it's the don't go in there crowd and just the teenagers. I mean, it was all, you know. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And it was getting good. I mean, the coming attractions looked pretty good. I think the early buzz was good, so I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either, actually. It even turned me around as the trailer started evolving. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, come on. Who could possibly top Tim Curry? They're trying too hard and so forth. And then each successive trailer, I was like, you know what? Maybe it can be its own thing.
Yeah. And if I recall, I don't think you had very high hopes for it.
No, I didn't. I really, really didn't. But the more I watched of the trailer, because I didn't have much hope for it, I kept watching the trailer. It's like, okay, come on, impress me. And the Sons of Guns did it. They kind of did. I was like, really? Oh, okay.
Why was your initial prediction so negative?
Because first of all, it's a huge book. I mean, granted, they're only doing one part of it. They're just doing the kids' part of the story. I assume that if there's the sequel, they'll do the adult version, the adult part of the story. It was never an easy book to adapt. I mean, even the TV series that, did an okay job still missed a lot of the key little elements of it that kind of made it so special.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I'm getting tired of Stephen King movies that are not following the Stephen King books at all or giving the amount of attention to detail. I mean, Stephen King will write 10 pages describing a house.
Yeah.
And he does that for a reason. So that when the action happens in the house, you know where everything is and why the person is running from here to there to everywhere, okay? Most of the Stephen King movies, like you take, for example, The Dark Tower. The Dark Tower is a book that took, 20 or 30 years to write. There was 10 different books in the entire series, and they condensed it into one movie.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. When you say, you can't do a Stephen King movie with the proper amount of respect to the source material, like you said, that book is gigantic. I mean, that book is like 3 Bibles tall. So how can anybody be expected to do it? I think the way they did this one is probably, like you said, it will probably take a few movies to do it justice. And I think that's probably what they're aiming for here. But I won't skip ahead.
Okay. No, I honestly, it's just. And the other side of the coin was Tim Curry was the original Pennywise. And I thought he was perfect because from first looks, he looks like a normal clown. And then, he turns sinister as it goes along. Whereas with every look of Pennywise that they had in here, he always looked sinister. He always looked like, why would I approach him? There's no reason why, this is a good clown, I want to go play. That was the whole point of Pennywise. Yeah. It's like, at first glance, he's approachable. And then it was the trailer where the first time we see Georgie and Pennywise interact.
Yeah.
That was when I first turned around. Because they got this one, it was a tiny, tiny little detail. When it first pops up, he has yellow eyes. And when he tries to tell Georgie, come take the boat, now his eyes are blue. And I was like, that is beautiful. Because that was actually a key part in the book where Georgie's like, hey, I thought he had yellow eyes, but no, look, he's got perfectly blue eyes. He's so kind and everything like that. And I just from that I was like, okay, you know what? You've turned me around. You definitely have paid attention to the book. Now you have my curiosity.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that too, because that was one of the things I kind of found interesting. Like I was wondering about that myself. Is Pennywise a clown because he's supposed to be cute and cuddly and lure kids in, or is he supposed to be terrifying? Here's my thoughts on the film. And I have to preface this by saying a couple things. A, I never read the book. B, I never saw the miniseries. I really don't know anything about this film except everyone just keeps going on and on about how terrified they are of clowns and how this is the scariest thing ever. And I'm never going to watch this because it's got scary clowns in it. And I've seen bits of the miniseries. I actually saw more in the last few days than I had ever seen before. Because now I'm going back and watching people review it and compare it to the early ones. And it's funny, when you talk about Tim Curry being like the Pennywise and doing such a great job, yeah, but that's probably the only really good thing about that series, because I think when you watch it today, it looks really dated.
It's ludicrous. It's not. It was not a great series. He was a great Pennywise, but it was not a great series. But
so yeah, having said that, I had a hunch I was going to like this film. I had a hunch it was going to be good for one reason and one reason only, is because every time I saw a commercial or trailer, I kept thinking Stranger Things. And the vibe I got was that, I mean, I understand that even the original series was about kids, and I've even seen sort of like shot-by-shot remakes of the original trailers from the original series, and it looked very similar. So I don't think they're trying to rip off Stranger Things. I think, and I know the story about Stranger Things, how Stranger Things was originally done as a pitch to redo it, so it makes sense. But the vibe I got was that because Stranger Things took off and was so popular, they were going to kind of sort of follow that vibe. And I felt like that's what it was. As I was watching the film, I did get kind of a Stranger Things feel. I mean, they even changed the setting from the 50s to the 80s. You know, they updated the time frame.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's an attempt to rip off Stranger Things. I'm not trying to imply that. I think they're updating it, so if they do the adults, it's going to be today. And the adults today would have been kids in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. But again, having said that, I enjoyed this the way I enjoyed Stranger Things. I didn't find it to be terribly scary. There were some things that were, creepy. A lot of jump scares, not too much, just enough to keep the teenagers screaming and whatever. But it was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it very much. I would probably give it a solid 7. It was a well done, well crafted film. I like the theme of it is the kids kind of banding together, the losers in town banding together and becoming a formidable team as a team. Yep. So well done. I have to wonder what the hell's wrong with Stephen King and what kind of town he grew up in, because the bullies in his town, boy, are like unlike any bullies I've ever seen.
Bullying in the 50s was a lot different than when we grew up.
I guess, boy, he the bullies in his town were like I would have said they were criminals, but now they're just like serial killers in training. But okay, so yeah, but I kind of feel like that's sort of a theme. And the other thing with the Stephen King films too is I find that they're never super satisfying, because I always sometimes I'm looking for a kind of set of rules. Mm-hmm. Like I'm looking for. There's a part of me that's going to kind of use M. Night Shyamalan as a positive, and I probably shouldn't. But,
whoa. No, now you have to. You come on.
Well, for better or for worse, when he does his twist, it does sort of make you go, oh, yeah, that's why this and that's why that, in the better films. Mm. In like The Sixth Sense. When you get to the punchline at the end, you go, oh, now it all makes sense. I kind of feel like in the Stephen King films that I've seen, there's never really that moment of understanding, was this real? Was this hallucination? Is this full-blown magic I'm watching? Or is it something else? There's never really a set of ground rules that it sort of has to, it never sets up its own rules and then has to sort of play along with them. It almost just sort of feels like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And what it means in the end, I don't know. Like there was things that happened even in the end when, things were looking like they were getting resolved, but I don't really know what came of this and that. So that's why I don't really get that into the Stephen King films. But again, having said that, it was a very enjoyable film, very enjoyable date night, Friday night movie. I recommend it. It's good.
Did Mary enjoy it?
She did, and ironically, she said it was not nearly as scary as she thought it was going to be.
Oh, okay. That's kind of disappointing to me. All right, one question.
Shoot.
Adolescent gangbang. Did it happen?
No, and I've only just heard of that today. Like I said, I've gone back and watched some of the reviews now. No, nothing like that happened. In fact, if anything, now that I've heard that, though, I'm saying to myself, wow, that kind of flies in the face of everything they were sort of aiming for in this film. So no, definitely does not happen, and I don't know.
I'm actually in the middle of rereading it. It's been many, many years since I've read it. I'm rereading it, trying to get to it before the movie, before I go to see the movie I am planning on. And I was very young when I first read it, so the higher message that King was trying to get across with that scene, I missed. So I'm kind of hoping maybe it'll make a more sense now that I'm older. Mm-hmm. But there's a very good chance I'm just going to read that and say the dude was on way too much cocaine.
Yeah. It is funny, though. I did say to myself watching this film, like, I feel like a lot of what's happening might not have even flown years ago, because again, what's happening, this is all about children. Yeah. Children taking on this, so there's violence against children in this film, which I don't think would have flown too well back in the day, but now it seems to be, nobody seems to really even notice it now.
There was an old Hollywood rule that you couldn't kill children or animals. That rule seems to be gone now.
Yeah, I mean, the animals, the movie cliche is if you call your dog more than once, it's dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, the children thing, it surprised me a little bit. Like, there was some scenes that were a little shocking in this. So,
Yeah, kids go through trauma like anybody else.
Yeah.
But, all right, cool. I am looking forward to checking it out. How'd the guy who played Pennywise do? How'd he do?
I thought he did fine. I thought he did very well. Probably not quite Tim Curry, a different kind of an animal, but very good. Mary kind of criticized that there were moments in the film where he was acting like a clown, and I could only see one or two times when that happened, where he was kind of goofing around, and she said that sort of removed a lot of the menace, and I would agree with that. That's probably true, but they did it fairly well, I thought. I mean, again, it's an evil clown. The whole point is that he kind of goes from, fun and happy to creepy as hell. So, but yeah, I thought he did fine.
All right, cool. Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
This picture's from the 10th round of the first fight, right? I heard about a third fight between you and Apollo, behind closed doors. That true?
How do you know all this?
I'm his son.
Creed. The former world heavyweight champion, Rocky Balboa, serves as a trainer and mentor to Adonis Johnson, the son of his late friend and former rival, Apollo Creed. Written by Ryan Coogler and Aaron Covington, directed by Coogler himself. Wow. Let me just explain a little something here to give you some context to my reaction. I was explaining to my son that I was doing a show and what I was going to review today and everything. And I was explaining to him how, the writer of this movie is actually writing the Black Panther movie. The star of this movie, he's going to be in Black Panther as the bad guy. And the female lead in this movie is actually playing the part of Valkyrie in the upcoming Thor movie.
Yeah.
So it's and of course Sly was in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like Marvel saw this movie and said, perfect, and just cast everybody. And I was explaining it to him, and he's like, well, can I watch it? I was like, well, you can't really watch it without watching the other ones before, because I don't know if it'll make as much impact as it does. And I thought about it. It's like, you know what? Actually, it would probably be fine if he watched it. I think that watching the entire series, adds to it, but this movie could easily stand alone. It fills in all the pieces for you. It acknowledges the original Rocky series, loves them very, very much, continues the story forward, and still, as a self-contained movie, it could work. You and I could never... I almost want to have my son watch this movie because I want to see what his reaction is without him knowing anything about the history of Rocky or anything like that. Just to see if he can pick up on the things about this movie. Because I felt that this movie was very accessible. He hadn't seen all the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
Because it explained itself so well without beating you over the head with it. Brilliantly written.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go back in time again, kind of like I did last week. I told you last week before Rocky Balboa came out that I had read snippets of the script and thought I just predicted it was going to be terrible, and I was shocked. Something similar happened with this one because I saw Rocky Balboa, absolutely fell in love with it. Terrific film, great way for Rocky to go out.
Right.
Then I heard the title Creed, and I just went, oh no. They're going to take something that worked and push it too far and try to wring that sponge for every last drop, and it's not going to work. And I really had serious hesitations. When it came out, and I heard, you know what? This is not bad. This is not what you think. This is, check it out. Like you said, I saw this, and I was like, you have to be kidding me. This is like lightning in a bottle twice.
Exactly.
You know, how they did it again. And I know the story behind it, and we'll talk about it, and I find it absolutely fascinating in its own respect. But again, how they got 2 in a row that were so good, so heartfelt, so real. Wow. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's 2 home runs in a row.
Yeah.
And that is pretty mind-boggling. That alone is pretty mind-boggling. And yeah, the story behind this I absolutely love. And again, Stallone was done. He hung up the gloves. He said, "I finally got a good way to go out. I'm happy it's done. I'm happy with it." The guy who does Fruitvale Station, whose name I'm going to forget,
Ryan Coogler.
yeah, comes up with this concept, comes up with this idea, goes to Stallone and pitches it. And the thing I love about this story when I heard it is that essentially it was kind of like Sylvester Stallone with his script back in 77 pitching this to producers saying, I got an idea, let's do this, trust me, it's going to be really good, and he needed somebody to have faith. Now Stallone is on the other side of that desk. Somebody comes to him and says, Chief, I know you're done with this, I know, but I got this great idea, you're going to love it. And Stallone was really hesitant. He was really hesitant. He's like, I went out on a good note. I don't know that I want to do this again. I don't want to take it. But he read it and he gave it a shot. And he said, you know what? I'm intrigued. So I like that story because again, now some young underdog is coming to him with an idea and he green lights it, whatever. So that in itself I kind of liked. And the story, holy cow, does this story work? First of all, even just the opening, I was really kind of knocked out. I was like, wow, that's different. I was not expecting that from this film. The way it sort of starts off with this this kid in juvie hall or whatever, getting into fights. And yeah, so that was different. I'll just say this, and I don't mean to keep using Rocky V as my example of how it's done wrong, but in Rocky V, Stallone is trying to take it to the next level where he's the trainer. And he finds a guy who wants to get trained or whatever, and yeah, okay. And again, he doesn't quite know how to do it, and the reason why it goes wrong, one of the big reasons why it goes wrong, is that he still sees this as a Stallone vehicle. And he doesn't quite get the idea that if you're going to pass the torch, if you're going to train somebody else and pass the torch, well, then the film is really about him. Mm-hmm. And you are a side character. For all practical purposes, you are a side character. Here, they get it right. Stallone is training somebody else. It is really his story. And Stallone is a side character. Now, he's a side character who gets his due for sure. He gets plenty of screen time, a terrific story. And again, Stallone was nominated Best Supporting Actor for a role. And I think this was like the 3rd time in history where an actor was nominated 2 times for playing the same character.
Years apart, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I do not remember the first one. The second one, I believe, was Pacino for playing Michael Corleone in Part 1 and Part 2. Stallone is now freed up to be an actor in this film. He's not writing, directing, and juggling everything else. He was just freed up to be an actor in this film, and it pays off because he gives a tremendous performance in here, and I was so upset that he got, as far as I'm concerned, he got robbed. Completely robbed at the Oscars. I'm not even going to touch it, but whatever. Anyway.
No, he does a tremendous performance, but please continue.
It really does. Everything about this film is really, really well done. And, we mentioned last week, or we hinted at it, again, with all of the... It's almost like we got so many words now. Reboots, restarts, remakes, yada, yada, where it's almost like we're starting to lose track of how to even name these. Like Star Trek with the Kelvin universe. Well, technically, it's still in the same universe. We got the same people, but it's, what I'm saying? They keep coming up with creative ways and not so creative ways to pump new life into a franchise. I think this was an excellent way to take this franchise, hand the torch off to the next generation, really hand off the torch to the next generation. Like I almost feel like this could have easily been like, had this film been in the wrong hands, it could have easily been sort of a half-assed effort to do that, where you're kind of handing it off to the new generation, but you don't really understand the new generation, or you don't really want to completely let it go, or whatever. This film does that. It authentically hands the torch off to the next character and says, you are now the new guy. And it's going to be your story, a different story than my story was. You have a new story. It's your own story to tell, but it still sits in that same world. It can still celebrate the same messages, that the early Rocky story was. And I think that was absolutely brilliant. I mean, the scene at the end where Adonis Creed has been training. He's almost ready for the big fight against the champ. And the part when he's running up and down the streets. Now, I thought this was terrific because this was kind of like a, again, it's kind of the scene of running up the steps at the Philadelphia Library, but it's kind of its own thing in his own way. And I was sort of shocked how masterfully done that was. The slow-mos with the guys on the motorcycles on either side of them.
Doing the wheelies and everything, yep.
I thought that was terrific. And again, it was sort of, like even Stallone said earlier, like, oh yeah, this is the new thing now. The kids in Philly, they all pop wheelies and ride up and down these streets or whatever. So it was almost like now a new celebration of a new generation, a younger generation doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And it really worked. And again, when he kind of finishes his sprint at the end and the guys just kind of going around him in circles, popping wheelies, whatever, Stallone is up in the window, the tiny little window. And the two little arms going out, cheering him on. Two little arms sticking out the window. That was it. Like, it wasn't, Stallone was not, running alongside him. He was not nearby. They weren't hugging each other and celebrating. No. He's way up in that tiny little window. Like, that to me was like, that was a perfect way to say, this is Adonis's moment. And he is a speck, just a little tiny little speck in this moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that to me is the sort of the core of the heart of this film, is that they really did allow this kid to tell his own story. I mean, the story as written, the story of Adonis Creed, they really let it be about him. Rocky's story is just sort of alongside for the ride.
Yeah.
And just really, really well done. The two, like both of them had stories to tell, but this is absolutely about Adonis Creed.
This was the perfect mirror to the first Rocky movie. When you referred to this as a reboot, at the time, I was like, well, no, it can't really be a reboot, and I suggested the term soft reboot, and you kind of seemed to attach to that. It was more apt than I thought, because it really truly was that. I mean, this was basically like a modernized version of Rocky, with Rocky in the Mickey part. Adonis is Rocky,
Yeah.
But still, the easy way out would have been to have them be similar style people. No, they built this amazing backstory for these characters, all the characters, even the girlfriend, for God's sake. She could have been perfunctory, and
yes.
She had these great little details about her. She's a singer, she's an artist who's losing her damn hearing. What?
Yes.
That little touch of actuality, of realism.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, her story mirrors his story, because she only has a short period of time to do the things she loves, just like him. He knows he can't box forever, but he wants to. Yeah,
she's got her own underdog story, and it's poetry. Yeah. It is absolute poetry. It's a tragedy that like you said, her world is her music, and she is slowly going to lose that.
The other thing this movie taught me is the sign language for bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
Which was a great scene. They go out for Philly cheesesteaks, and she tells them, and oh god, just this was the thing that I loved about the Rocky series. Not only was the stories that it told in the first Rocky, the second Rocky, the third, and Rocky Balboa. The little things, the tiny little character details that throughout this entire review process, we've all agreed, like, these little character nuggets are just the most outstanding part of it, because it shows a living, breathing world. as opposed to everything is just this one or two people and screw the rest of this world. It felt so. I mean, my God, it's just I was floored. I was emotional. I was kind of emotional, like when he goes to visit Adrian's grave and there's Paulie's grave right next to him.
Yeah.
I got a little emotional there. After I watched the movie, I started reading up on it. Oh my God, I am such a jerk. I have to say this now. I was bagging on poor Sage Stallone in Rocky V. I didn't realize the guy died 5 years ago.
Oh yeah. That's very true. In fact, when they were doing Rocky Balboa, there was talk about bringing Sage Stallone in to reprise his role as Rocky Jr.
Right.
And I think that what they said at the time was that the reason why they decided against it was that they didn't want the idea of the son being overshadowed by the father. They didn't want any real life. They didn't want the real life possibilities of that to creep in. Like Sage Stallone, I'm sure, does live in his father's shadow and probably does go deal with those kind of issues. They didn't want that to sort of creep into this film.
You got to figure that burden, like when he was describing how his son was in Vancouver and he was nice about it, but there was a pining, there was a sadness to it as well.
Yeah.
You got to figure that had to play in his head as he was talking about it, because it's just, oh my God, I can't imagine something like that. I would lose my damn mind. Yeah. I don't know how he does this, but okay, let's get back to the movie. So what we had here is an extremely well-constructed movie that respects, loves, honors the original movies, but tells it in its own voice, and tells it in a modern voice, in a way that a remake would have gotten completely wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
By continuing the story, and honestly, this is like, I'm still amazed this movie got made, because I could just see a Hollywood executive looking at this as a checklist of everything that's wrong with trying to do another Rocky. Rocky's not the focus of the movie. It's not Rocky's son. Why don't we just reboot? Let's just reboot. Reboot will be easier.
Yeah.
Why aren't we continuing the story? I am shocked that this movie made it, even made it, and doubly shocked at just how well crafted it is. You want to talk about crafting? Holy smokes! Let's talk for a second about his first fight.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you know what I'm about to say?
I assume you're going to talk about the one take?
Holy mother of God, yes!
Yeah.
I was watching that and I was looking. I mean, it's an example of one of two things: the most amazing stage or the finest editing ever done. It could go either way, but it really was. It was, first of all, the fighting even was outstanding. I mean, those guys really, they were hitting each other, or there was some trickery or whatever the heck may be, but damn it really looked like they were hitting each other. And the way the camera was moving around, it did 2 rounds without a single cut, or at least without a single obvious cut. Holy smokes, was that impressive. The choreography, the way that they moved in with each other, and it seemed natural. How many times did they have to practice that, for God's sakes? Because it seemed, every punch seemed extremely natural. Like, this was a response to this, and this was a response to that. And, even when it's like he's taking the punch, and he misses. Now, and he ducks out of the way. He does the rope-a-dope like Apollo used to do based on Muhammad Ali. He just moves his head out of the way as the punch is coming in. It looks like, if he didn't do that, he was getting hit, and then boom, reset, take 2.
Yeah, the fact that they did not cut once, you're just like, wow, this is pretty incredible.
I'm going to have to rewatch it, but I'm pretty sure that from the moment he started walking out of the back until he wins, I think that entire thing is one cut.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to take another look. It's a good 6 or 7 minute sequence, but it's outstanding. It is some of the finest example of editing and directing I've ever seen.
Absolutely, and think about it too. I mean, we've had in the past we've had great single shot takes, like Goodfellas or whatever. Mm-hmm. But this is not just people walking through. This was walking through and a fight, a whole 2 rounds of a choreographed fight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. I mean, that's just think about the focus and concentration and the memory and the choreography required for that. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
The choreography alone has got to be amazing, because I mean, you're focusing. You have these 2 guys. They have to focus on stepping on certain spots, for the right angle. Then they have to throw their punches, and they have to think about ducking the punches that are coming their way. to make it look real. Amazing. I mean, there were moments you could kind of see how they did it to reset the fighters and stuff like that. Like, they would focus on one fighter for a second, so you can tell, like, the other fighter was off the screen, the camera for a second, so God knows what they were doing to reset or anything.
Yeah.
So, but still, it was, what an incredible display. I mean, I was gushing over that. I was like, if it wasn't for the fact that I was so involved with the movie, I would have rewound and rewatched it again. That's how amazed I was by it.
And think of it this way too. And you're not even really, you're talking about the two fighters where they need to be. There's a camera guy who is intimately involved with all of that. So it's really three of them doing this kind of dance.
And a referee. And every once in a while, a referee pops up.
Right, there you go, too.
They talk about how, for like dance scenes in movies, like they practice for days and weeks leading up to the big dance scene and rehearse. That had to be the biggest scene to have to rehearse. Had to be easily.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
sure.
Anything else in that movie, just like set up and go. But that, oh my God! And I mean, both actors really showed off fighting. Adonis, Michael B. Jordan, formerly the Human Torch, is now you know, and thank God for him. You know, I always thought that this guy was a good actor, so you know, him being in Fantastic, I was kind of felt bad for him. So this was a great comeback for him, as far as I'm concerned. So good on him.
Yeah.
And it actually came out in the same year, so there you go. But no, he showed chops. He showed a lot of chops with his boxing and everything like that.
Oh yeah.
You know,
and I'll tell you too. I mean, I raved about Stallone's performance, and I felt they got robbed of the Oscars. Michael B. Jordan is excellent in this film. He is absolutely tremendous. He really deserves serious props. I mean, the part when he's in the cell and he starts yelling at Rocky and stuff, and he's got a tear coming down. Wow, that's powerful. Absolutely, really.
And so in keeping with the Rocky series, him deciding not to tell him about his cancer, and then when he finds out, telling him, "I'm not going to fight it," was such in character for Rocky to do. 100%.
Oh yes, absolutely. And oh my God, the part when he is in the hospital and the nurse gives him the diagnosis and starts to talk to him about treatment.
Well, we went through your test results, and your biopsy came back showing signs of large cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
What's that do?
Well, it's a form of cancer. I know that sounds scary, but the good news is we caught it early. However, we will have to remove the tumor in your lymph nodes and start chemotherapy immediately.
My wife tried that.
Mr. Balboa, as far as options for treatment, this is the best plan of action.
No, I understand, but my wife tried that, and I don't think I want to do it. Didn't turn out so good, but it's okay.
With treatment, you'll still have a very good chance of recovery. Without it...
I'm okay with it, really.
The slight sneer in the way he says that. Because he's talking about Adrian and what she went through and what they put her through, and she still died anyway. Mm-hmm. He's got just enough, like, again, Rocky's got a heart of gold. He's never going to take it out on this nurse by any stretch, but he has this memory. So you see just enough of a look on his face where he's sneering at the idea of going through that. And he's like, nope, not doing it. I thought that was so first of all, it was just such a powerful moment. That little subtle little sneer that he gives her when he's talking about that. I mean, it's such a great performance. It was so believable. You know, again, like, you know just enough about his background that you would understand exactly why he would say what he's saying and making the decision he's making. To the point where, like, yeah, when he tells the kid, I'm not going to do that. No. You understand it. You believe it. You know, it's completely believable.
Yeah, 100%. It's a tremendous performance from, and you know what, great casting in the fact how well they get along. I mean, there's such great chemistry between the two of them. We talk a lot about how when an actor is cast with the person that's his romantic interest, how much chemistry matters. We very rarely actually talk about the bromance style of casting. This is one of those situations where, you know, he first calls him Unc, and I'm like, okay, that's a bit soon, you know. but as it goes through, and as they get going together, I mean, yeah, he tries to push him away because he doesn't want him to see him go through what Adrian had to go through. I understood that. That was so unspoken and yet so well spoken. I mean, the whole scene with the nurse, like you were just saying, pretty much set up exactly why he was pushing him away.
Yeah.
And yet there was such a camaraderie between them, such a wonderful camaraderie between the two of them. I can see these two guys easily being friends or easily being uncle and nephew.
Yeah, I totally agree. And frankly, I love how that blossomed from the first meeting. The first meeting in the restaurant, I love that scene. That scene when they first meet in the restaurant and he's kind of like, well, how do you, when he's asking him, like, I heard there was a third fight. And he's, I heard this, and he's going, how do you know all this? And he's like, are you a relative or whatever? And then, he says, he's my dad. And, I love how Rocky sits back, pulls up a chair, sits down, and he starts, the way he says, he goes, I can tell by the way you're talking, you're not a stupid kid. You've got some education. Why would you choose this? And if your father was here, he would tell you the same thing I'm telling you. You don't have to do this. And it's almost like you can understand Rocky's predicament. It's like he sort of takes on the Apollo role, the father role, the best he can in the absence of Apollo. And it's part because, like, he feels some responsibility that Apollo's not around anymore. He's trying to give him the advice that Apollo would give him if he were here. Don't do it. On the other hand, it's like, if this kid is going to do it, should I like he can't decide what is the right course of action. Do I become this kid's trainer and help him the best I can, or wash my hands of this whole thing and just say, no, I listen, I wouldn't do this if I were you, and I'm not going to be part of it. So that dilemma in the beginning is, again, completely understandable, completely believable.
Yeah.
So I love how that it progresses from that point on. And incidentally, I also love the fact that when he says who won the third fight. Well, first of all, I love what he said. I love when he asked him, how was he? And he's like, how was he? He was the perfect fighter. He says that he was the perfect fighter. You can't beat him. He's like, well, how'd you beat him? He goes, I didn't beat him. Time beat him. And time is undefeated.
Time is undefeated.
Yeah, terrific line.
Yeah. You know what else was a great line, and I seriously love this line where he's having him shadow box to his mirror. He says, "You see that guy in the mirror?
Yes,
that's your toughest opponent."
You see this guy here staring back at you?
Yeah.
That's your toughest opponent. Every time you get into the ring, that's who you're going against. I believe that in boxing, and I do believe that in life. Okay?
Yep.
I mean, come on. I know it's so simple, but it was so beautifully done.
Yeah.
Just so, and the way Michael Jordan's just like looking at it so intently. It's not just Stallone when he's explaining it. Stallone is being very serious and Yoda and Mickey like as he's doing it, and like Jordan, it's like he's telling it, and there's this look on Jordan's face like, I get it, I see what you're saying, and it's subtle. It's so subtle. It's such an amazing bit of acting. That whole line, that whole scene with him, every scene between the two of them is just heartfelt.
Yeah.
Heartfelt and wonderful.
And not only that, I love how later on during the fight, he kind of reiterates that point again when he says something about, he says something like, don't forget, this fight is not about him. It's about you, and he's just in the way. Get him out of the way.
Get him on the ropes. Deep breath.
Boys, Bass.
Hey. It's you against you.
Me against you?
That's right. He's just in your way. Get him out of the way.
If you want to inspire yourself, this is kind of an inspiring movie. I mean, here's a kid, he had what he needed. He had a tough life to begin with, and Marianne Creed comes along, finds him, takes him in, and gives him an education. And he was successful. He was obviously successful. He was doing well. He had a promotion. He was all set to get his own office and everything like that. He knew this was not what he wanted.
Yeah,
this was not what he was built for.
Yes.
This is such about chasing that dream of yours.
Yeah, that was terrific because I love the whole. First of all, I love the scene where she goes to pick him up, and he's just got out of a fight, and he's in his room. He's standing there and he's stewing, right,
with his fists clenched.
Yes, with the fists clenched the entire time, and you don't even notice it until at some point he finds out who she is or whatever, what's going on, and you saw the fist unclench.
Yeah.
What a great shot. Again, subtle little moment, but oh my God, does that go a long way. And so, yeah, I love the idea, like you said, he's working these jobs. Like, he's working at a job, he's wearing a tie, everything's going fine, and they talk about his promotion, whatever. And it's almost like you get the sense that this is a job that he probably got because his mother had money, they knew people. You want a job here? No problem. And they probably just cleared the... I mean, I'm sure he was probably doing his job well. I'm sure he was probably doing what he wanted.
He probably got a very good education and was able to utilize that as well.
Exactly, right. But you have to figure that the doors were probably being opened for him, and he probably just felt like, you know what, it doesn't feel right. Like you said, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel real. And here he is going down to the Tijuanas on the weekends. So, that's fascinating to me, too, because you got to figure he's got enough money to fly back and forth to go down and do this.
Yeah.
Like, he must be doing fine. So it's not out of necessity that he needs to do this. And even when he goes to the gym, his dad's old gym, by the way, what I thought was interesting, and the guy starts yelling at him. He goes, these guys are fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their livelihoods. You don't need to come in here. Like, it was almost like they're talking down to him because he's got money now. So you don't come in here with your money with a chip on your shoulder with something to prove. But that was the point, is that he still felt deep down there was something he had something to prove. And even throughout the whole movie, that this is a terrific theme throughout the film, where everyone keeps asking him, why do you want to do this? And it was almost like the Joker in The Dark Knight, where he's got a different answer for everybody. He can't quite verbalize why. He knows. He goes, well, look, she says, why don't you want to use the name? Well, I don't want to start using it. What if I lose? And what if people call me a fraud? Or what if I don't want to trade on my dad's name? I don't want this. And the father, he says to Rocky, well, I want to fight because of whatever. It's not until the end where Rocky says, you know what? And that's a great moment, too. Like the last round of the fight. And Rocky says to him, he goes, look, I had a chance to stop that fight for your old man, and I didn't. I'm going to stop this fight now, right? He says, I can do it different now, and I'm going to stop it right here and now. You did enough. You don't have to go any further.
I should have stopped this one with your father. I'm stopping this one now.
Don't, okay? Let me finish. I gotta prove it.
Prove what?
I'm not a mistake.
And he blurts out, I want to prove that I was not a mistake.
Oh, yes, I forgot that
line.
That
was the gut punch. That was that was the moment of reality, the moment of truth, where he just said it out loud, the truth of what is really going through his mind. Again, because he was the product of an illegitimate relationship too. Like, he wasn't even like, this woman who's raising him is technically not even his mother. So that's part of this whole, he doesn't know who he is, he doesn't know what he's doing here, and he doesn't know why he's doing what he's doing. But that moment, wow, boom, hit it home again, another home run moment.
I am more hard pressed to find flaws with this movie. I am extremely hard pressed to find flaws with this movie. And there's flaws in every movie, but some movies do what they're trying to do so well that the flaws just kind of get glossed over. And maybe that's the case with this movie. Maybe this is going to be a case where sometime down the line I'll take another shot at it and I'll realize, oh, okay, there's this and there's that. But I spent hours today seriously thinking about this movie. First of all, I even had a hard time coming up with a 4-year consideration because I just felt like, can I just say the movie is my 4-year consideration? Yeah. I want to do that joke, but I don't feel like I've kind of earned that joke yet. I finally did figure something. out, and we'll get to that. But then I started working on, okay, but who asked you? And I spent hours today working on a Who Asked You.
Yeah, I've got one, but it is so peripheral. It is kind of almost as nitpicky as my last week's stuff. Yeah, I'm totally on board with you 100%. This is a phenomenal piece of work. I have a hard time finding anything wrong with it myself, and I think
I'm stupefied by this movie. I'm stupefied. In the grand scheme of things, this movie should not work. It shouldn't work.
I don't know. Well, I'm not sure if I agree with you, but go ahead. Finish your thought.
Okay, think about this for a second. In the grand scheme of things, this should not work. What we have here is you have a sequel to a Hail Mary, which is funny considering that's the song he comes out to for his fight. But seriously, Rocky Balboa was a Hail Mary. It was a chance to try and truly give Rocky a good send-off. And by some miracle, that 90-yard pass got caught and boom, touchdown.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're telling me now we're going to do a story where we want to continue with Rocky, but we're going to tell the story of Apollo's kid. It's still in the same universe, same blah, 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 so on and so forth. It has all the earmarks of this shouldn't work. Who is going to want to see this? How is this going to be compelling in any way, shape, or form? You know, my first thought when they said about this movie was, wait a second, his kids were 10 and 12 years old at most in 1990. How the hell is he? And then, they did the thing with the illegitimate child, and it was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But still, and then you have, it's not even written or directed by Stallone.
Yeah, yeah.
It's this guy, Ryan Coogler, who did a great job with Fruitvale Station, granted, but who the heck is this guy?
Yeah.
Everything about this movie just said to me is there's no way this should work. So when I first heard people say it worked, I was like, really? And like I said, I was looking forward to it. It's like all these people talked about how it worked and everything like that. It's like, okay, I've gone through the Rocky series. Let's see what can possibly beat Rocky Balboa as a coda to the life of Rocky Balboa. And I gotta tell you, he pulled it off. Because I can't... Yeah. I can't think... I mean, Rocky Balboa, as far as I'm concerned, to me, is the saying goodbye to Rocky as a fighter. Creed is now the start of Rocky as the trainer.
I tell you what, you said a lot there. Listen, as far as it shouldn't have worked, like I said, my first instinct when I first heard the title, I just thought, oh, no. They're going to try to get cute with this, and it's not going to work. And lo and behold, I'm proven wrong again. In fact... As far as what the future holds, when you talk about this being the start of Rocky as a trainer, I'm very curious to see what the future holds because we know they're doing another one. And again, we know that Ivan Drago, Dolph Lundgren, is going to be in the next one. My first instinct is no. No, this won't work. This can't work. But again, am I going to go the third time now saying this can't work and being proven wrong? So listen, I'm open to it.
Frankly, Joe, honestly, I'm going to let you go with that instinct because you've been wrong on Rocky Balboa and Creed now. So I'm kind of hoping maybe you'll get the trifecta and Creed 2 will just be outstanding.
I hope so. I really do. And interestingly, I also find it interesting that the title so far anyway is Creed 2 because that sort of cements what I've sort of been thinking all along is that Creed really is the first of the new generation of Rocky film. You know what I mean? It's no longer... See, that's why... And this film, it's an interesting animal because, again, as much as it's the seventh in the Rocky franchise, technically, it really does work as its own animal. And it is really sort of the first one of the next generation. So I am curious to see what they do from here. And the fact that they've called it Creed 2 as opposed to Rocky 8 says something. It says that they are treating this like a new series. And I think that's wise. See, again, if I have to sum up what I think is so fabulous about this film, it is the Rocky film for a different generation. The fact that this is like, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for, whatever term I come up with for this, but the urban youth of today who likes this kind of music and likes, like they hang out in clubs where they're doing, like rap music and stuff. Incidentally, by the way, I thought the score and the music tracks in this were awesome. I really liked the score. And again, this is not Bill Conti. This is its own score. Right. So they're not replaying they're not trying to hit all the same notes as the first Rocky films.
Although every once in a while the music did come up.
It was pretty rare. And I think, in fact, I think that I remember the last round of the fight, the big fight, the Rocky music finally kicked in. There was a little bit in the beginning, but not much. This score was more or less its own animal, and I even loved some of the music. Like when the girl doing the music in the club was great. I really liked that.
And she sang it. She sang it herself.
Is that right? Yeah. It doesn't surprise me. She was, when you mentioned that she was in Thor, I was wondering if you knew that because I went to look up after I saw it again to see if she'd been in anything else. I didn't make the connection that was her until I saw it just recently. But anyway, I like the idea that this is Rocky for a new generation. The way they talk to each other, the way they all got along. Again, this is the young urban youth generation. And this is probably a generation that could use a Rocky story, that could use a good inspirational role model-ish kind of a story that you can overcome, odds. No matter what's been stacked up against you, you can go for it and you can make your own way. I really think in that respect, I really have to give it so much respect for that it did take the Rocky legend and position it and present it for a new generation of people who can get into it now and watch it fresh. And I think that is probably, again, there are good reasons to reboot or redo movies, whatever. There are good reasons and bad reasons. I find this to be the best reason of all. If you can repackage something positive and present it to a different generation, a younger generation, that to me is a good reason to want to do this.
Indeed. I seriously, I can't gush. I could gush about this movie so much and what it could mean for, for so many other franchises. I mean, how does Rocky keep doing this? How does this series keep doing this? It's a series of nothing but firsts. It really, really is. The first sports movie that made it big. The first, down on his luck guy gets his shot, makes it big. The first movie that goes from arguably the worst dreck of a film to what we were completely gushing about last week. What movie comes back from a tremendous failure like that? Rocky. And talk about a Rocky story when it comes back. And then finally to continue on, to be able to continue on in a way that doesn't make it feel stale or old or like, oh God, not this again. Who's he gonna fight? But all right, I'm just gonna say it. Here it is. I gave this movie a 10.
Really?
I did. I loved it that much. When he made it to the last fight and he knocked down when he knocked down Pretty Ricky Conlon, I was crying. I was seriously crying. I felt like they earned that so well. The entire movie built up to that moment, and when they knocked him down, it was believable. I felt like, this was definitely earned. And even though I shouldn't have been shocked, that it ended the way that it did, I just felt so happy for the character. And when you make that type of connection with a character, that is a sign of a fine, as far as I'm concerned. When you're crying, not because the character died, but because a character succeeded.
Yes.
That is such a tremendous sign of a movie. And I also have to give other credits. Sure, okay, Pretty Ricky was a jerk to him at the press conference. Yeah. But I liked how real his character was.
Agreed.
And the good sportsmanship he showed at the end. It's like, yeah, okay, he's all bluster and so on and so forth, but in the end he's like, respect.
Yeah. When he said something like you're the future of this league or something like that. That was terrific, yeah.
Yeah. It was just I gave it a 10. I'm sorry. What? No, I take it back. I'm not sorry. I really loved this movie. I loved it so much. I easily cannot find anything wrong with it. I'm going to have to give it another viewing. This movie stunned me, and it stunned me even more that it is a continuation of the Rocky story. I am so happy, so happy we did this series, and what a way to cap it off. It started with a 10 in Rocky for me, and now it's ending with a 10 in Creed. This movie got ripped off at the Oscars, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Listen, I gave it a 9, and I totally respect the 10. And there is a part of me that has been back and forth with the idea of giving it a 10. I was there. And there is nothing when I say I was there, I don't have any detractions. I have nothing to say negative about it. Only that I gave Rocky Balboa a 9, and the only reason I even gave that a 9 is because I said to myself, it's just not the original. If I'm going to give Rocky 1 a 10, I'm giving it a 10 because that's the film that created characters. It created everything that we know, and everything since then has piggybacked off that, for better or for worse. Rocky Balboa was the one that I watched, like I said, through older eyes. I grew up with this character, and that's the one that I said had me just such an emotional gut punch from beginning to end. I grew up with it. I grew up with the character of Rocky, and that was, for me, that was just tremendous. I watched Creed again just this week. I'd seen it once before, and I watched it again this past week to get ready for this review. And I watched it, and I said to myself, wow, I feel like empirically, this is an even better film. It's even better than Rocky Balboa, and it's more original. In the same way that I grew up with Rocky, and this is the culmination of everything I'd grown up with. Creed does stand on its own. It does stand on its own, and that deserves credit too. The next generation can watch this film and just take it for what it is, and be inspired by it, and it is a flawless film. The only reason I'm keeping it a 9 is because, like I said, I wasn't blubbering through Creed the way I did Rocky Balboa. But again, having said that, this film has my utmost respect. I think it is an absolutely phenomenal piece of work, deserves every bit of credit that it gets. I'm really happy, literally happy for its existence, that I think next generations can watch this and get out of it what I got out of Rocky growing up.
I was just about to say that. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
There is a Joe and Dave out there. Maybe they're named James and Jane or whatever the hell their names are, but they have watched this movie and it's made an impact on them the same way Rocky has made an impact on us. And
absolutely,
20 years from now, they'll be doing a holograph podcast about it.
Seriously. Yeah, phenomenal piece of work. Absolutely adore it, and I'm excited for the future.
Yeah,
I really am.
I feel the 10 is warranted because as the start of a brand new franchise based off of an old one, I think it's off to a roaring start. Which brings me to Who Asked You. You're gonna have to go solo, man. I gave it a 10. There's no Who Asked You from me.
Like I said, mine is so nitpicky, and you might even find it annoying. I went back and forth on this. I wasn't sure how I felt about it, and I've kind of decided that I would have done it differently now. I wasn't crazy about the casting of Felicia Rashad as Marianne Creed. And it was only because, well, first of all, I went back and I looked up because I was very curious to see if the original actress was available, but unfortunately she did pass away not that long ago. Yeah. So they could not have brought her back even if they wanted to. I thought that maybe what they were going for with this bit of casting was the little subtle sense of familiarity that even if we can't get the original actress, why not get somebody that we know, so it's somebody that we sort of feel familiar with and already feel a kind of a warmth to, that we can understand the kid unclenching his fist and taking this woman on as his mom. Then I kind of went back on it and I said to myself, you know what, now that I look back, I wish they got somebody new, because the bottom line is I could not stop thinking Claire Huxtable. I would have rather stay in this world and focused on these characters. I mean, again, everybody's, other than Stallone, to me was brand new. And I thought that worked because it created this brand new world. In retrospect, I wish they had cast a little differently. And even somebody just a little edgier. Because, again, the warmth I think was needed. But you also could have done that with like an Angela Bassett, who I would have seen as more of somebody who is been through the ringer with Apollo. You know, as a stronger character, a stronger actress, I think. You know, and when I say stronger, not a better actress, but, you know, somebody who exudes strength the way like an Angela Bassett or somebody similar would have done.
You know what? I can respect that. I didn't know, she didn't distract from me, but I can understand. I'm gonna let that slide. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, and I guess since you're giving it a 10, you got nothing, right?
No, that's the rule. If you give it a 10, there's no Who Asked You.
Yeah.
And believe me, honestly, I was on a 9 myself. The only reason I went 10 was because even as I was vacillating as we were reviewing between a 9 and a 10. If I had figured out one flaw, it was a 9. But even as we're talking, even the Felicia Rashad thing, I feel like that's just a difference of opinion. I don't see the problem.
Totally agree.
I still can't find a flaw enough in it to really say Who Asked You. And if I can't say Who Asked You, I can't go and I say that this is a great movie. I'm gonna take it to the 10.
I'm with you. And like I said, my Who Asked You is, it's not even so much a flaw as much as
you're a nitpicky
a lateral move to do it differently. I don't find it to be it's a great film.
You're a nitpicky jerk.
Yeah.
But I love you.
All right, what about
my consideration? Dude, there was a lot. But I'm going to have to... I described it in detail during the cast. I should have saved it for the end. But the one-shot first fight is the most amazing feat of technical achievement in a movie that I have seen in a long time.
Okay. All right. It's okay. Good. Deep breath. Bring it on. Deep breath. Deep breath. Look at me. I like what you're doing out there, all right? You're a little tight. You're going to loosen up, all right? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to throw your left under the radar. Then when you come up with this shovel hook, you're going to see an opening, put it right on his chin, that'll drop him. Your old man did that to me. It worked.
That was an amazing, amazing shot. I don't know why he needed to do it that way. I don't care. I loved every second of it, and probably 5 seconds after I get off with you, I'm going to replay that shot again. I just found that to be a great... And there was a lot. I mean, there was... I thought of saying you see the guy in the mirror scene, which I thought was beautiful and brilliant. That was on the list as well. The scene where when he tells him to not fight, you're not fighting him, he's just in your way. It's another great but I'm sticking with the technical achievement of that first. That was too brilliant.
Nice. For your consideration, I am going to cheat.
Uh-oh.
I confess, I'm going to cheat. You hinted at this in the beginning, and the more I had been thinking about it, in fact, I've been thinking about this because early on in our Rocky series, we said something about how at the end we really should just do kind of an overview of the whole series. Mm-hmm. And that's been kicking around in my mind. And as I'm watching Creed, the idea, it comes to me that for your consideration, I give you a phenomenal series. And you hinted at this in the beginning. The Rocky franchise is one of the most solid, long-running film franchises ever. And again, you said, Rocky 5 was a clear misstep. They fumbled the ball there. Rocky 4 was, kind of traded in some drama and reality for the adrenaline rush. But this franchise as a whole, Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, 5 stumbles a bit, to come back with a home run like Rocky Balboa, and then to replicate that success. Double down and replicate that success with Creed. This is now a 7-film franchise, and as far as I'm concerned, one of them is poor. The other 6 are great films. Great films. I can't find another film franchise. I don't think Star Wars has a record that good.
No.
How many other franchises can you say has that many films for this long a duration? And the sum total is such quality stuff, such quality work that you could sit there all day long and watch Rocky films and not get bored, not get tired of it, except for Rocky 5. But if you had to sit there and watch 1 to Creed, that's a good day. That is not bad.
We've proven that because we did. We had, I feel like this is some of our best work, to be honest with you.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think, and the fact that we had one to be able to pick on and say, look, we can also bash on these films too when they go wrong, and say why. It does have that a little bit of a roller coaster effect, but again, as a whole, this whole franchise, again, like I said, I think this is one of the greatest film franchises of all time.
Oh, it certainly is. 100%. There's no, in quality wise, it is up there with the Star Warses, with the Bonds. Mm-hmm. Easily. And I gotta be, if I'm really, really being honest with myself, surpasses both.
In a lot of ways, it really does. Again, it's hard, and it's hard to compare it to a lot of things too, because again, like things like James Bond has been around since the 60s.
Yeah.
It keeps reinventing itself. It's got highs and lows. It sort of just flows with the times in some ways. Rocky is still its own animal. It's a pretty small world. There's not a whole lot you can do with it. I mean, I'm even tempted to compare it. I think that like the Godfather trilogy is a more apt comparison, because you're talking about a tight-knit group of people in a certain era, in their own situation. And even that one stumbles. That one stumbles in 3. But Rocky, again, out of 7 films, they got only 1 stumble. And that's pretty impressive.
One serious stumble. You could say that 4 is shaky ground, but it was still entertaining. 5 was a major stumble.
Agreed.
But on a whole, the rest are solid films. We gave them 8s and 9s mostly.
Right. Seriously. In fact, I remember when Creed came out, one reviewer had said, there was one review that came out and the guy said, this film has no business being this good.
Apt.
Yeah. It's true, and I got his point, but that did get me thinking. But you know what? I don't know that I agree with that, because again, this franchise, you look at its roots and you look at where it's been. again, like, as much as I said, like, even 4, you said stumbled, but again, even the Bond films, like you said, I said those go with the times. They dip from realistic to kind of funny and campy, then they kind of snap back. Rocky IV was a product of its time. It wasn't the drama that we had come to expect, but for what it was at that time, it was a home run.
Yeah.
So, again, to say that Creed doesn't have any business being this good, I don't know. I got a couple films in this franchise that Exhibit A, I say this whole franchise is pretty phenomenal.
A great fighter once said, "It ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward."
Joe, if you told me we're done doing reviews without remorse, I would happily accept this as our swan song. Please don't say that. I'm actually looking forward to doing more with this. But yeah. I just feel like I feel like we've reached a high watermark with these movies because I'm still amazed at how wonderful this entire series was.
Agreed.
I'm still floored just how excited I have been to talk about these movies.
Same here.
Seriously, I mean, I got old. I got cynical. I took Rocky for granted. I forgot. I forgot.
I'm with you there. Like I said, I mean, I've said it over and over. Nobody's a bigger Stallone fan than I am. I did not expect to gush as much as we have for the series.
But on that note,
what's interesting is we're going to go wildly in a different direction now, though. This was Rocky was kind of a different animal for a little while, but we're gonna get back into the big stuff next week. I haven't seen this one in a while, but I'm gonna have to rewatch The Kingsman so we can review it next week.
Yep, because Kingsman 2 is coming out the following week.
Kingsman 2 is coming out the following week. Then we got we're back into blockbuster territory. We got Thor Ragnarok is coming up soon. Star Wars The Last Jedi is coming out soon. So
Blade Runner is coming out soon.
Blade Runner 2018, 24, whatever. Blade Runner 2. Yeah, we're gonna get into some big stuff again. So,
well, we hope you've enjoyed this series, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we enjoyed talking about it.
Exactly, I really did too. I hope I enjoyed it, and I hope everybody else enjoyed hearing us gush and talk about it.
All right, well, good night, my friend, and good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.